So to give everyone a little bit of background, first on MuleSoft. So MuleSoft was founded as what we call an industry-leading iPaaS provider. That stands for, I'm sure everyone's heard of SaaS, iPaaS integration platform as a service. So in simple terms, that just means we provide the technology to connect any two systems so data can move seamlessly between them. Like we truly just move data no matter where it is between systems, structured or unstructured. But I'll get into that in just a second. Salesforce actually acquired MuleSoft in 2018 because it just made sense to not only move data between Salesforce applications, but also between any system across an organization. So even Salesforce agnostic, we can move data between any system. So it just made sense given that Salesforce has so much data and we're working with so many customers with so many systems. You need kind of that unified integration layer across the board. So to give a little bit of background on, MuleSoft as a whole, again, before we get into IDP, it's, we're about integration. When I mentioned we can move that data across any two systems, this could be TMS, WMS, your CRM, ERP. We work with all the specialized systems that I'm sure everyone on this call or webinar is very familiar with: CargoWise, McCloud, Oracle, NetSuite. That's just a few that are coming top of mind that we're working with every single day.
It's important to note, guys, that this is like a developer view or something that like an admin would, or developer or AI prompt developer uses in testing. Once this is set up, the documents just flow through. So unless you're dealing with an exception or something, you wouldn't really get into this, but just to kind of demonstrate the engine, we're going to do that. What I've set up is just a really generic prompt. You can build a very detailed prompt that you can tailor to your business and build some smarts in, but I just set up a really generic one. It's basically just read this document and give me all the data in this format called JSON, which is just a text-based format that other computer systems can read really easily. So a lot of times we'll process a document, we'll just output the JSON. So I'm going to start off with a shipping document. And it's just a container report, container notification report. And this should be, IDP should, knock this out of the park. This has been typewritten. It should be very readable. There's no handwriting on it. It's not an image. On that previous slide, we talked about PDFs, definitely can read PDFs. It can also read like email attachments, or you can even have like a mobile case where maybe you've got a guy wander around, he sees a document, he takes a picture on his phone, and he SMSs that in somewhere, and it gets picked up and processed. So
yeah,
there's a lot of different ways.
I see that all the time, Bill, is like, how can we use IDP when drivers are on the road? They're taking a picture of these documents. They're putting it into whatever messaging. I mean, we're Salesforce, so we use Slack. And how do we, get that ready, get that information from the picture right away? Another one I see a lot, driver's licenses. That's a big one as well that we're seeing.
So like I said, it did a great job on here. And this is maybe where you can start to see how it differs from OCR. If I were doing an OCR document, the format could never really change. I need that field to be in a particular place so that I can map it back. This one was, it's smart enough to go, hey, everything in this column is a seal number. So it broke down the individual containers. Now, where it gets kind of neat is like, I'm looking at this as a person. I'm like, hey, these containers are all gluten, but I don't see that. And the reason it didn't return that is like, I didn't really tell it that. So what if I modified the prompt and I said, hey, everything's grouped, and to get it into another system, I need to know what the content is. And you can do that really easily, and you can edit these prompts. So I'm going to modify it. I'm going to tell the AI something else. I'm going to tell it containers are grouped by their content. So let me know what the content of each one is. And then I can also do things like unit conversions or sum or transform the data. So I'm going to say, hey, give me the total number of containers and also just sum up the weight. I want to know like the total weight of everything that's delivered. So I'm going to update that, save it. I'm going to run it now. See how it does. Okay, so it ran. If we look down into a container, we can see, look, it added this little content field. So, this container contains gluten, et cetera, et cetera. If I go down, further down, I can see that the contents of the other one. And then at the very end, it said, hey, there were 17 containers, and here's my total weight. So pretty neat that you can sort of conversationally give it some instructions. Let's see. And that's great, but maybe there's something, so that's good to see that it can handle an image, just a snapshot. But maybe what I really want to know is just, hey, I want a process that flags anyone that weren't signed by the driver for review. So, I can add a condition for that. So I'm going to do that.
Was, can this be integrated to flows and other automations within Salesforce? Yeah. Absolutely. Like the whole point of going back to big picture here is the data within these documents, we're taking it, ripping that data, putting it in a digestible format that this can go into any system, whether it's Salesforce or not, whether it's your TMS, like I mentioned, CargoWise, McLeod, etc. We can take that data and it'll go anywhere and be completely automated.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so this ran, I added just a condition. It said, hey, just make sure there's a signature. So maybe I want to flag it and say, was it signed? So yeah, it looked at the image and it found the driver's signature. So it's context aware. It's like way beyond what OCR can do. And then the last one I want to do is one that's a little bit more problematic. So let's leave that. We're going to go with a handwritten one. And in this case, you can imagine I'm processing things normally. I just want to flag ones where, something jumped out, like maybe something's wrong, maybe it wasn't signed, maybe it's been something weird's going on. So I picked an example that had a lot of like stuff crossed out and handwritten. So in here, there were some damages and the contents changed. And, that might be one that I wanted to flag, like, hey, somebody needs to review this. And I wrote a couple prompts. I just said, really high level, just what do you notice about this? So I'm not giving like really detailed technical things. I'm relying on the LLM to find some stuff. Come on, guy. And then the other thing is then I just would set a flag that, hey, this needs to be reviewed. So let's run that and see what we get.
So one of the things that comes from this is really a non-deterministic answer, right? Like, so that kind of a prompt where you're saying, you go back to the field one there, yeah, at the top of that, Bill, can you include any observations? That's a wide open question, right? I mean, that could really be anything. So what you're doing is you're opening it up to say, I'm going to deal with a non-deterministic answer that the AI engine is able to look at this document and figure out, hey, something's not quite, this is not an expected thing for this form, and here's what it is. And now you're able to kind of take some action on that. Go ahead.
And you can see what's impressive to me is not only did it pick up that there's some handwriting, look, it picked up that the temperature did not meet the delivery conditions. So it was supposed to be at -10 and it was actual temp was 1 degree Fahrenheit. So it flagged, something that's,
yeah, I mean, we're just taking this to the next level by, of course, it's amazing to be able to take the information from the document and put it in any system or any format that we need, but we're also able to ask these questions on top of that using AI.
Yeah. And you guys mentioned a confidence threshold. Here it flagged, it said, hey, I've got a 50% confidence with this document, with the data, because I'm seeing some things are typewritten, I'm seeing some things are handwritten. So you can kick out based on that threshold, or you can set some trigger conditions like I did there. So you can imagine a process that's, dealing with lots of documents that are flowing through, and then you're just flagging certain ones that need some manual intervention.
Yeah, I'll say with the confidence threshold, I mean, like, obviously the goal is to be as confident as possible, and that's going to be the most helpful with typed formats, with these documents. But I mean, I'm even reading this document right now. I mean, I think if we took a poll amongst the 40-ish people on this call today, it is difficult at times to read these handwritten docs. So what we want with the confidence threshold is that this will just alert your team of anything that the system's just slightly uncomfortable with, and you could set that threshold range so then your team can manually look through it. So it just gives you a kind of, I'll call it like a stopgap or a backup process in the case that you want to be as accurate as possible with your data. It'll let you know that there's something that maybe would need another look.
When you're happy with that model and you've trained that, right? And so now you've written the prompt and everything looks good. What would happen is you would deploy that application. Okay, you deploy that document action. What that actually does is it pushes that as an API into the MuleSoft runtime. And then you're able to interact with that. And so one of the things that so this all happens behind the scenes. So what you saw today is kind of that front end version of that. But when you publish, so Bill's got it up here now, right? When you publish that, that actually makes that available. And now we would build an ingestion component that says, okay, pick up these files from this location. If you have all of your partners or all of your drivers or all of the all of your shippers all dropping a bill of lading into a specific folder, then we can use that folder with SFTP to pull that data in to what was published, process that document, and then IDP will send out a notification that says, I'm done with this this document, and it was successful. You can pick up the contents here. And then we can pick up that contents with another API, another MuleSoft API that we can build that knows then, oh, okay, now where do you want to push that data? Do you want that data to land in your CRM? Do you want that data to land in your ERP or your warehouse management system? Those are the kinds of decisions that we can make after we get the notification that the document completed and was successful. If it was not successful, we'll also be notified about that, and we can take that as an error case or as an edge case that can then push that into a place where your end users can then spend their time kind of working on that one-off situation.
A question in the chat, Jim, about can you based on the results of reading the document, can you take different actions? So if it's a different type of document, and the answer to that is like absolutely. This is really just usually the first step in the process. So you got to route it to the right systems. You might be enriching the data. So maybe you pulled a bill of materials, but you want to get pricing or or based on weight or something. So you could have an API hitting another business system to pull that. But,
imagine you want to split the document. So you can read this document, and then the API that gets the result or the application, we would build an application or an API that gets that result, and maybe part of that needs to go to your inventory system to maybe reduce or increase your inventory, but the other needs to go to your billing system, right? And be able to process if you've got some financial implications of that document. So there may be some places where you can take the data that comes from that. Think about it like this is just becoming that human in the middle, but it's automated. Because so the entry of this data is super important, right? That's why people do it all day long, right? People are handing somebody a document, they're typing it into the system. What we're wanting to do is make that more accurate and be able to do that in an automated way so that those people don't, because the data that's on these documents is super important. Otherwise we wouldn't need the documents, right? What we want to do though is is do this in an automated way that increases the quality of the data so that we can trust the data that we're seeing, and then frees up staff from having to type all of these things in to be able to do more value added tasks than just typing into systems.
I just want to echo, even if you don't have Salesforce, like this is something that you guys can completely use via MuleSoft. MuleSoft is just a totally other product, and IDP is really one solution within a whole host of data integration and automation, like our data integration and automation suite. So no need exactly just for Salesforce. In terms of whether you need it or not, we can definitely help there. I see Karuthaga also had another question. I see documents are manually uploaded to this. Do we have APIs to send docs via integration? Yeah, that is actually the core of MuleSoft, is leveraging APIs. And Karuthaga, we could talk about that at another time, but that's actually the core to MuleSoft's offerings, is we have this API ecosystem for reusability and scalability. So it's all part of this unified integration ecosystem, I'll call it, where we can bring data together from really anywhere.
Right. So we would start with kind of a phase one, like identify some of the documents that provide that biggest return on investment, right? Most of you guys were talking about bill of ladings as being 50% of you guys kind of identified that as the main thing, right? So start with that, right? Start with something that's going to have a big impact, and then move into some of the things that may involve developing some additional components, or maybe where there's a little more complexity to that, where you're needing to take data from there and save that data in multiple different systems, right? And so that, over time, you're going to get to a place where you've got most of your documents that are now automated, and you're not needing to touch those. I think the other aspect of that, kind of across all three of these, is locating that data, right? So are these documents that are coming in via email? Are they coming in via SMS messages like Bill mentioned? Or is somebody dropping these documents into a folder, a file folder, so that you've got so that we can use secure FTP to get those documents? Those are the kinds of questions that we ask throughout all of these steps, because that's the piece that we build outside of the IDP engine, that actually helps provide that extra layer of value in integrating the data that comes from those documents into your native systems, so your current line of business systems. And as Michael said, Salesforce not required. So if you've got your whatever your enterprise systems are that help you run your business, this plugs directly into that, and does not doesn't need you to switch over to Salesforce CRM.
Yeah. I know we're at time, guys. The neat thing about IDP too is that we can run it in our environment, or we can even do trial. You can get trial licenses. It's easy for us to show you your documents in action and walk you through a ROI calculation. And in my experience, a lot of times these projects can pay for themselves, so you can kind of ease into it. And as you start taking on more and more of it, you can show the cost savings to easily justify it.
Afterwards, this is our contact information. We'd love to help customize this to each of your organizations, but we'll definitely be in touch. And if you have any questions, again, this is our information. Thanks so much for taking the time before Labor Day weekend and during your lunch. This was really exciting for us, and I hope it was exciting for you all as well.